Fire for them, fire for them. If you're looking for that 35 bag umbrella and all damn thing there, keep it locked with DISUNOMICS podcast.
Yo, what's good, people? Another episode of Monday Morning News, and let's get straight into it. Firstly, nurses pay rise. The streets are going absolutely crazy. Clap for the NHS, yeah, and I fucking laugh, son. All that clapping, all them gestures, flipping, boats in the Thames doing spinnaroos, and all them things there. Nurses getting a 1% pay rise, which is an absolute travesty when you think about all the hours they've put in, lives being lost, being stretched due to the global pandemic. So ministers are claiming that the government can't do any more and they can't afford any more than a 1% pay rise for healthcare workers and social care workers. A lot of Tories aren't happy about this. Some of them feel like, yo, you might want to have to do another U-turn because this is bad PR. We've seen the government do a U-turn when Marcus Rashford dunked all over their head tops, making them do a reversal of the school meals thing. And some Tories are worried that they're going to have to do this as well. So Health Sec Matt Hancock, he's argued that, yo, this is a relatively good deal and it's almost like it's a victory that nurses and other healthcare workers are excluded from a wider public sector pay freeze. So people who work in the public sector are people who work, they're like government jobs essentially. They have such as teachers, firemen, policemen. A lot of people have seen a pay freeze and it's like, yo, I got you lot 1%, you know what I mean? And they're saying, oh, it's a real terms increase. And a real terms increase means when your wages is going above inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is essentially the price of money because it's the cost of goods and services that you'll be buying with your wages. So if inflation is gone up by 5%, meaning all the things you buy from your kids' toys to groceries to petrol, whatever's gone up by 5%, and your wages have gone up by 3%, there's a 2% difference. So your money is effectively 2%, gone down by 2% because you can't get as much for your money as you did before. Well, inflation is currently 0.9%, so there's a 0.1% increase, but still, not enough. So this is different to what's happening in Scotland. So Nicola Sturgeon has already said that, yo, we promise our health and social care workers will all get a one-off bonus payment of £500, and she's even currently trying to persuade Boris to make sure that this payment is tax-free. My man, Matt Hancock, said, yeah, we ain't going to do that. So so far, they're not even going to give the nurses a little, do you know what I mean, a little bonus payment. Well, a lot of the Royal College of Nurses are very angry. One of the reasons is that in 2019, when they were doing the budget, the Conservatives, they have budgeted for, in the 2021 to 2022 financial year, the nurses will receive a pay rise of 2.1%. So their finances are already structured towards that way. So it's strange for a lot of people that effectively that's a 1.1% reduction in what they were entitled to be paid in the first place. The nurses union, as I mentioned, the RCN, Royal College of Nurses, they have said that a lot of nurses have already said they're going to leave, and there has been talks of industrial action, which obviously the new union has to vote for, and that means some form of strike. The Royal College of Nurses said nurses to get a 12.5% pay increase. Of course, that is a dramatic increase because there's millions of nurses, but I do believe personally that there should be a substantial increase and other bonuses, maybe such as perks like discounted on buying houses or rents sponsored by the government, additional holidays, tax-free, like all this, I don't know, they have to reward it, but this is a fuckery. So far, the pay increase works out about £6 per week, yeah, for the average experienced nurse, which is that's barely a zinger mill. And the Royal College of Nurses argued that in real terms, after tax, that's about £3.50 increase. Joking, you can't get anything in London for £3.50. There was 40,000 nursing vacancies at the start of the pandemic, and we've seen during the pandemic there was scrambling for nurses, retired nurses, student nurses had to jump in, and I think I've heard rumours that's why the Nightingale hospital got closed because there wasn't enough staff. This isn't good for aspiring nurses. Like, this is just shoddy. And it's very interesting because on March the 1st, HMRC, so the people in charge of money, also public servants, they voted on a pay rise, which is worth 13% over the next 3 years. So in this academic year coming up, they'll get 3% increase, and the next 2 years will be 5% or 5%. Pardon me. So that's looking spooky. But of course, naturally, there's less staff in HMRC than nurses, but still. Now, moving on to some more government fuckery. Priti Patel, so this is going to be a short one. Home Secretary, I think I spoke on my podcast before that there was bullying claims, and this was levied by Sir Philip Rutnam, and he won £340,000. That's a lot of money. So he's, he quit amongst claims that she's been bullied, and this is a quote. He quoted her as being vicious and orchestrated in how she was described, and he pleaded to change her ways. So that's looking kind of spooky. Another big bit of news this week, last week, shall I say, saw the budget. Chancellor Rishi Patel announced on Wednesday the budget. Some key points. We want our personal allowance, which is our tax-free amount, will go up a little bit. But outside of that, there's going to be no real changes to the tax bands as of now. Income tax bands will largely stay the same to 2026. There's going to be an increase in corporation tax if your company earns more than £250,000 in profits, and that will come into play coming from the financial year in 2023, and that is an increase in corporation tax from 19% to 25%, unless your company earns less than £250,000 of profits and you pay the original rate of 19%. And that's probably the main bits of news. Oh yeah, and the government are backing 5% mortgages, and they said they've got many lenders to jump on a wave. So those are the main big newses from that I think will impact people. Now, another interesting story to round up, Switzerland. So Switzerland, they do things a bit differently. They invite their people to get involved in politics a lot more, in terms of they often, more often than many other places, offer referendums on policy. And this is a very interesting one, and in my opinion, a troubling one. So Switzerland has narrowly voted in favour of banning face coverings in public, including the Birka and niqab worn by Muslim women. So the result was 51.2% to 48.8%, so it was a very close one. And this was proposed by a right-wing party called Swiss People's Party, SVP. And they're on a strong campaign to stop extremism. So they were expecting a larger majority, but they still got it through. And this is crazy because, in terms of Switzerland, they have a 5.3% population in terms of being Muslim, according to 2019 statistics. That's around just under 450,000 people. But I always find this very strange, because how many people have you seen committed crimes, extremism, and we haven't been able to track them because they're wearing a niqab or a burqa? So some of the face coverings that are now going to be banned, worn by Muslim women, so we've got a burqa, which is full body, covers entire face. You've got niqab, which is a veil for the face. You've got hijab, you've got a chador, you've got shala, you've got al-amira, and you've got a khimar. If I've pronounced these Arabic terms incorrectly, please comment below and let me know. I find this very worrying. I've had debates about this. I do not understand how I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that you need to ban these face coverings. And it is very worrying to me, and I think Islamophobia and xenophobia plays a very significant role in this. I'm thoroughly disappointed in the people of Switzerland, but it just shows, although society may have come such a long way, we still have some ways to go. So, people, comment below what your thoughts on Switzerland banning face coverings. Are you for it? Are you against it? What do you think of Priti Patel? Also, I want you to comment on what you think of the budget. Any questions, I can address them on the budget podcast. And of course, how do you feel about the nurses' pay rise? Do you think it's too little? Do you think the government will U-turn? So let me know. Please make sure to join Patreon. A video should be coming this week. I did a fantastic podcast with the great Brooke Odun, Brooke on the Go. Fantastic podcast. That should be on Patreon, and that should be on YouTube this week. So DISUNOMICS on Patreon. Of course, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. All the links are in the description below. And to next week, people, peace and blessings. Bow.